Greetings, one and all, to a somewhat delayed episode 3 of These Are the Voyages. What lies beneath? Yes, what does lie beneath? Well, in this case, what lies beneath a 3-day delay in getting this episode done is the fact that the mission decided to crash on me no less than 14 times in the first room without fail. Even after a complete wipe and reinstall, I'm still hitting technical problems. Although, given that this is manifesting as the fact that I cannot see anyone else's name or ship name, I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem. I got sick of seeing the USS Enterprise with a Z rather than an S, commanded by Captain Jean-Luc Picard, about 2 minutes into the beta. Anyway, we are back to Drozana station, where the Davidians are still using the locals for munchies. And they don't even have to be fresh locals either, as you will discover, assuming you haven't already played this mission, which is highly likely given the sheer delay that's been involved in getting this to work. As always with these videos, I will be having to split it down into 10-minute increments courtesy of YouTube. I apologise, links will be provided. Anyway, welcome back to Drozana Station. It's still the seediest place this side of, well, anywhere. A wretched hive indeed, but it is a wretched hive that will serve to demonstrate a new bit of technology that Cryptic have come up with. Or rather, an old bit of technology. Yes, Star Trek Online finally has torches. You'd think by the 25th century they'd have working night vision goggles, but no, apparently not. Anyway, it's not really as good in a horror movie. You need a torch that's going to flicker off at the worst possible moment, or it just doesn't count. Assuming you're not watching this episode in the immediate aftermath of its release, it came out on the 30th of October, the day before Halloween. This is basically Star Trek Online does horror movie. So we have our traditional horror movie setup, namely, the lights are out, it's dark, it's dank, no one's been down here in ages, and it's falling apart. Ferengi maintenance. There's an oxymoron if ever there was one. So, the torches don't work, the lighting doesn't work, probably half the doors aren't going to work. Hopefully the guns will still work, or we're going to have real problems. And here we have it, the torch. It's not perfect, because it uses the dynamic lighting feature in STO. ATI Radian users have been reporting that they've had problems, to put it mildly. Namely, the game has this worrying tendency to crash if you use the dynamic lighting feature with a Radian, and it's been this way since release. No one's ever quite sorted it. Anyway, this episode actually runs through several distinct genres of horror, and this is the first one where it doesn't actually throw any shocks your way. It doesn't throw any opponents your way, but it just lets you scare yourself by dropping hints. So we have these rather large cobwebs in the corner. The lighting doesn't work properly. There are things dangling. The chains are casting shadows, which is quite a nice touch, even if I'm not entirely sure it got that quite right. But nothing's going on. So why am I on edge? I mean, I'm taking this at corner clearance, I'm taking it slowly, and I'm swinging back and checking my 6 every so often. There's nothing here. Why am I being so cautious? Well, the answer is because I know there are Davidians around. We occasionally get these blue flashes of triolic energy, and that's the hint that you might be about to get ambushed. And like a good little dog that's had its bell rung at every meal, every time I see a blue flash, I'm swinging around and checking for an ambush. Good, straightforward Pavlovian conditioning. It brings to mind another horror level. Those of you who played Thief 3 will remember an episode called The Shale Ridge Cradle. Well, the episode itself was actually titled Robbing the Cradle, and I still rate that as one of the scariest video game experiences I've ever had. Why? Because for the entire first half of the level, It didn't put a single opponent your way, but the audio background in the game made it sound like there was quite a lot just round the corner waiting to get you. Of course there wasn't, but courtesy of the game experience before that, you've been conditioned to jump at those audio cues, so of course you did. Now, second gameplay innovation is coming up here. Previously, it hasn't mattered too much whether you were tactical, science, or engineering. It really just affected your bridge powers. Here's a good change. Here, an engineering captain can bypass that door and get it working, and yes, I did just walk right by 3 giant spiders. Yes, they're not really a threat, but yeah, jump factor, lot of ambushes, shock horror, and the fast-paced, high-tempo music that kicked in at this point really didn't help matters either. So yeah, I'm back to being cautious. We've slowed the pace back down, and of course, just as your heart rate's coming back down, boom, another shock. Classic horror, give yourself just enough time to react. Give the victims just enough time to think, okay, that was it, and bang, hit them again. And of course, you can't do that too often, so we're not going to get another shock jump like that for another section. Doesn't matter. The player is still on edge, the consumer is still on edge. You can still jump them up and hey, just another hint. Enemy disappearing around the corner, classic. Those of you who played Fear will remember Alma's tendency of disappearing around corners. Of course, said corners usually turn out to be liberally strewn with body parts by the time you got to them. Yeah, yes indeed. Cryptic appear to have just used, well, let's face it, they basically raided the textbook of horror movies for this episode, and that's no bad thing because it's making for one of the most effective bits of gameplay I've ever seen in Star Trek Online. It's certainly winning the atmosphere quotient. They're playing with the lighting engine and showing it off to full effect in this episode. Really messing with you. Anyway, I'm going to speed it up at this point. I've got 47 minutes of footage to get through, and I really don't want to have to field a 5-part video, so let's just crank this up. So, needless to say, at this point we get jumped by the Davidians. It's a fairly easy pack, but again we're illustrating a couple of innovations. Rather than flicking up a massive dialogue box in the middle of a firefight, your bridge officer's advice has just popped up in a little unobtrusive box that you can still see. It's still there, but it doesn't get in the way. Okay, the hint's pretty obvious. You were told directly in episode 2 that the proton rifle, no, it's not a Ghostbusters gun, no, really, was going to be your best weapon against the Davidians. Granted, it's your best weapon against just about anybody at the moment because, frankly, this thing hits like a truck. But I can see a 5-man group toting these just, well, frankly, just slaughtering whole packs without remorse. Oh, the Davidianity? Anyway, the maintenance elevator, some considerate person has locked it down. Well, we can fix that. Yes, we can. We are Starfleet. Handy of them to leave the key to us. And getting to the maintenance elevator seems like as good a place as any. So, join me in part 2, where we will plumb the depths of Drozana.